everybody, this is Joe from What I'm Playing Now. We are back at Origins 2018. I have Keith Matejka here from Thunderworks Games.
Hello.
And we are here to talk about, let's just talk about role player.
Sure, man.
I mean, it seems like it's been a good success for you.
Yeah, so it's been a good one for sure. So the expansion just came out, and the base game's been out for, I guess, a couple years now. So
yeah.
It's been nice to have something that has, maintained, people have maintained interest in it, and people continue to discover it. It was an interesting ride on it specifically. I obviously kickstarted both the base game and the expansion.
Yes.
And the original Kickstarter for the base game, was a mild success.
Right.
I want to say it was November of 2016, maybe. I mean, I might not so good with the years, but
time flies when you're having fun.
It did okay, and I printed a moderate amount, and then as soon as it hit retail and people were starting to play their Kickstarter copies, the buzz was kind of crazy on it, and as a result, I had not printed a ton, and so it was actually really hard to get a hold of, which is kind of heartbreaking when people want to get a hold of your game, and you're scrambling to
trying to get reprints and everything.
Yeah, especially for I'm a one person
company.
Yeah, it's like a designer publisher, and I don't have a ton of capital to do big print runs, which is why I use Kickstarter. But it took me about a year to kind of get enough product into the marketplace to kind of satisfy the need to some degree. So that was cool.
Yeah, I remember when it hit retail, I grabbed it immediately because I missed the Kickstarter, and I heard a lot of some of the podcasts I listened to. I heard a lot of people talking about it, and I was like, okay, I need to try this. Right. So I picked it up and started showing it to some friends, and then they were like, okay. I know several of them have added to their collection after playing my copy. Very cool. So it does have a way of just working its way out there.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's at this point I just assume generally people have heard about it or played it and either they're into it or not. But I still get a lot of people that stop by the booth or whatever, and they're looking at them like, hey, have you heard of Role Player? And they're like, no. I was like, okay, well, obviously there's still quite a few people that I have an opportunity to expose it to. So it's growing, and the expansion just came out. I had a really successful Kickstarter campaign for the expansion last summer and delivered a couple months ago. So, and the reviews are great. So, yeah, man, I'm just kind of I'm excited about Role Player, and obviously I've got a lot of role play related stuff kind of in the pipe.
Oh, okay.
Expand, so.
What can you tell us any, or is this stuff on the down?
I like to share. I know there's a time where you're not supposed to kind of announce stuff too early or stuff, but when people are excited about my games, I just want to tell them all about it because I'm excited about it. So.
Since you worked in the video game industry, you can't overpromise and underdeliver. That's the one thing you cannot do.
That is the bane of a lot of Kickstarter creators. Is so I inherit that mentality in my production and project management style, under promise and over deliver. And that it's a win for everybody when that happens. So I've got another expansion in the works.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That's called Fiends and Familiars. So that's kind of in the testing phase. So that's exciting. I'm hopefully going to do that, a Kickstarter for that in the spring. I mean, I like to really put my games through the not the trenches, but I guess to some
through the ringer.
Yeah, through the ringer for sure.
Well, it seems like it's pretty well balanced. I mean, we've played it a lot. We played a lot of the different characters, and I don't think I've noticed anything that's really unbalanced. I mean, from any of the playthroughs.
Role Player in particular has a lot of variables, so it's a difficult one. But even especially with the base game, scores tend to be really close, and I always get comments that they're surprised that I went this totally different direction in terms of victory point path,
right?
And the scores tend to be pretty close in that game, which I think is a nice thing.
Yeah, I think most of our scores have been close, and of course, this is yet another game she always wins at. So
there you go. I like that, buddy.
We're talking about my wife who's behind the camera,
right? And then the base game was kind of the game that I really wanted to make, and then the expansion was kind of everybody who enjoyed the game, there was a certain percentage of people that they wanted to see certain things, I want to do something with my character.
Exactly, I was going to say.
Comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's do that, but we're going to do it my way. So with Monsters and Minions specifically, I wanted to set up an expansion that integrates kind of from the beginning of the game.
Okay.
I mean, I played a lot of expansions where they're here's 5 different modules, and you can mix and match whatever you want. And they just kind of get tacked on at different spots. And one, I think that's hard to test because then you have to test like every single combination a ton. And 2, like I just wanted to kind of slide into the game, and so I didn't want to extend the playtime a whole lot because I'm like super sensitive to the play length of games. You know, if a game is kind of run out in terms of the fun versus the time, like there's like I want to make sure I'm still having fun even if the game's getting longer.
Right.
So I tried to kind of keep the play length down. So a lot of things like the big piece is like being able to fight these little creatures, and that's instead of doing something else, instead of being like just hey at the end of everybody's turn we get to fight a monster. Well, that's going to extend the game, and that's something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the big thing is that it adds a 5th player, which I think definitely will add to the length of your play. But there's a lot of game groups that have 5 or 6 players, and they for whatever reason they don't want to break up. You know,
down at our game group, it's this. Yeah, there's like 5 of us, and we're like, anybody bring a 5-player game, or are we going to do a 3 and a 2? You know, and it's like,
and nobody ever wants to do the 3 and a 2.
Nobody.
But personally, I would totally do a 3 and a 2. And so
sometimes we do. Sometimes we. Sometimes I've been like, why don't we go play this and let them do this 3-player? You know, sometimes I'm usually able to coerce somebody into doing that. Right. But a lot of times everybody's like, let's just find a 5-player game, or you pull out 7 Wonders because that's the one that could play. You know, a good number of people. It's like, okay, we played 7 Wonders enough.
Right. I mean, there's my personal favorite play counter for playing a game is almost always 3.
Yeah.
Because I like the multiplayer competition, but I don't want to wait forever for my turn because I'm like a super impatient guy.
Yeah.
So, I like playing 3-player stuff. So if we have 6 players, I'm like, all right, let's do 3 and 3.
I agree.
I like to do it, but I know different groups are different. You know, they get together as a group of friends and they want to be kind of sharing an experience, and that's cool. But this is not my jam.
So, will you be able to play both games, both expansions with the base game, or will you one or the other? Or will they both be able to fit in? Maybe?
No, I think they're gonna stack. Right?
Okay, so, cool.
I was kind of playing around with the idea of like you have the base game and Fiends, or you could have the base game and Monsters.
Right.
But there's so many cool design knobs in the Monsters expansion that I want to have that as part of the box. So
okay.
And then I would probably have to end up doubling up on components across both expansions if I wanted to do that. So I think you'll have to have both monsters. You'll have to have monsters to play familiars. But so that's in the works. The next thing coming from Thunderworks Games is a game called Lockup. So
okay.
Lockup. It's called Lockup: A Role Player Tale. So it's in the role player universe to some degree, but it's from another designer, actually I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, and the designer is Stan Kordonsky from Milwaukee. And I found that game at Protospiel, which, if you're familiar with these Protospiel conventions, where designers get together and they just play each other's games and rip each other's games apart, and all for the betterment of the games, even though there might be a couple feelings hurt along the way. But
gotta have thick skin for that.
Yeah, you do. As to be a designer, you have to have thick skin no matter what. But I love those events, and I found Stan's game at one of these, and we spent another year developing it.
Okay.
And him and I, and then now it's kind of getting ready for Kickstarter. So that'll launch in September of 2018. So, but it's a worker placement game where you're playing as a group of the minions. So you might be the kobolds, and I'm the bugbears, and this person's the gnolls or the insectoids, or the other thing I can't remember.
It's early in the morning. That's all right.
It's one of those guys. The goblins is the last one, and you're playing in Colbuck Prison, which is a fantasy dungeon of the world. So the world of role players is actually starting to kind of grow and have
interesting.
More, more of a history, and it's getting deeper and deeper. And this is kind of the first step into that. And you've got your crew, and they move around to different parts. They get placed in different parts of the dungeon / prison, and they're vying for power and influence within there. So they're building contraband items, and they're getting more followers into their crew and stuff. So
I think that sounds like something we'd be interested in, especially when you said worker placement. That's definitely one of the genres we love.
It's so the workers have values in terms of like their strength. And then some of them get placed face down, and some of them get placed up, and they're placed like Stone Age, where like if I want to go to the exercise yard, I can put as many guys as I want there, but next time around the table, I can never play it again until everything's resolved. And so, but within each region, the person who has the most strength is going to get a much nicer benefit than the people that don't.
Okay.
So you're kind of doing it's a little bit, I guess you could call it area control.
I was going to say, it sounds like a little bit area
control.
Yeah,
area control and worker placement, and there's a lot of cool kind of wrinkles along the way too.
That's two things both of us really enjoy in our game. So we're
so
definitely gonna have to check that one out.
Yeah, for sure. And your crew is gaining in power. You spend a lot of time in the exercise yard, and you're gonna get your main guy, the enforcer, is gonna get more powerful. And you're also there's suspicion that's kind of laid out there that you're trying to avoid. Suspicion from the guards. So it's interesting. One of the things that happened during the Monsters and Minions campaign, and I also did this during the base game campaign for Role Player, is I let the backers vote about like what races they wanted in the game. So I always had like a handful ready to go, and then I let backers vote. Hey, what kind of races do you want to see in these games? And for the base game, I had snuck onto the list the Frogkin, which was like my first game that I designed and published was called Bullfrog. So I wanted to like get my frog guy in the game, and then I was like, yeah, backers, you should go vote, and like they didn't vote for that one. I was like, man. So then I decided I'm just gonna make it anyway. So
and you're allowed to.
Right. So I can do that now. So then I ended up making that and putting it in the Board Game Geek store for sale, and I saw it on my website.
We picked it up.
Well, I appreciate that. And then for the Monsters campaign, there was a lot of votes at the very end for the last race to be this kind of robot race. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, this kind of world is very kind of Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, traditional Tolkien fantasy. Yeah. I was like, I don't know if I like this robot idea, but kind of the fans have spoken, so here we go. But now, as a result, the constructs are like in the prison. The constructs are the prison guards, so they're kind of, which is kind of fun. That race has actually kind of evolved, at least in my mind and in the world of Role Player, to be like actually a pretty important role. And then I have additional Role Player products coming that they have their own role as well. So Fiends and Familiars is the next Role Player thing. It's directly, and then Lockup is the next Kickstarter. And then, if you want to just talk about Role Player stuff,
well, you had another Kickstarter, I believe. Didn't
you?
Yeah.
So
Dual Powers.
Dual Powers Revolution 1917. Okay. So that is, that's a great game. So that just finished up on Kickstarter. I was
like, we don't need to talk about all Role Player. We can hit your whole library.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. I got a lot of stuff going on. And so I just finished up the Kickstarter for Dual Powers. Dual Powers was designed by Brett Myers, which is a local buddy of mine, and also a published designer. He did a game called Nanook for Steve Jackson back in the day, which is one of my favorite kind of party games, and that is a bit of an older game and maybe a little overlooked by folks at this point, but it's definitely worth taking a look at. It's really good. And he did a game for R&R Games called Rome City of Marble, which is kind of a Euro city building game. It's quite good. It has like weird parallelogram shaped tiles similar to, man, I can't even think of the name of the game. But there's not many games that have those instead of square tiles, but like,
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a good game.
I can't think of anything, but I think I've seen it.
It's like it's not Wilderness Survival. I know that game, but it has some similar name. Anyway, Dual Powers is a 2-player game where you're playing during the Russian Revolution. One person's the Whites and one person's the Reds. I didn't know a ton about the time period myself when I started working with Brett on it, but I loved the gameplay, so I was like, let's work on this together. And then over the course of working on it, I've learned much more about it. And so that did well on Kickstarter. It's definitely kind of outside thematically of the stuff that I've done before.
Definitely a little different, yeah.
Which is what I kind of like. Like, I know Role Player is kind of what I'm currently known for, but I don't know if at the end of the day, if I want to be like, hey, it's Keith, he does fantasy stuff. It's like, well, I want to be able to do a lot of different things. And my kind of philosophy is, at least my goal when I work on games is to, one, work on awesome games, things that I like. And I was like, mainly because as I work on these things and I market these things, like I want to have a lot of passion about what I'm talking about.
And it's easier if you
are
enjoying it.
If the game is kind of meh, then like that passion like goes down the tubes pretty fast. And
the fans will be able to tell right away.
Right. I'm not very good at like putting on the enthusiastic face when I'm not really enthusiastic about something. I'm pretty transparent when it comes to that stuff. So, and then I also want to work with people I really like. So, because you're going to be working with this person for years, and if you're not really enjoying working with that person, like it can really kind of bum you out a little bit. So
hopefully with expansions, it could even go further than years.
Right, for sure. If something is successful, then obviously you want to do more of it. But Dual Powers is a great game from Brett. It's asymmetrical. It's not super asymmetrical in terms of like we have these person have different player powers and we have these different win conditions. It's the two sides are different, but not like super different. It's a really balanced game, and it has this really clever mechanic where when you're playing cards, but every time you play a card, it advances the calendar a certain amount of days, and that kind of tracks the historical period.
Okay.
But whenever the calendar lands on specific days, like the 15th and the last day of the month, you get bonus actions, which is kind of a cool thing to worry about. And then it's a cool thing to take advantage of. And then there's something called the Will of the People, which is a marker that goes back and forth. And there's neutral units that are on the 6 regions of the central board, which represents Petrograd, St. Petersburg at the time. And whoever has the Will of the People kind of controls those units. So you're kind of fighting for control of the Will of the People. And then you're also doing kind of area control in these 6 regions. And there's always one region that everybody knows is going to score, and then where both players know. And then at the beginning of each round, you pick another one secretly, which one's going to score. And so you're trying to figure out where the other guy's trying to score, because if you can get the majority in the area that they're trying to score in, then you're going to get those points, so you can steal them away. And it has like a tug-of-war style victory point track, like Twilight Struggle or whatever. It takes like 45 minutes to play. It's great for like sitting down on a lunch hour or something like that. And
sounds like another game I would probably lose to her at.
Yeah, it's a good time, and there's the rules are fairly simple, but there's some deceptively kind of clever gameplay in there too. So it's some interesting decisions.
Cool. So back to Role Player real quick.
Sure.
You've worked in the video game industry.
Yeah.
So when you said you told me some of the titles you worked on, which is very impressive.
Well,
I will tip my hat to you, sir. You've mentioned some damn good titles there before we started to talk here. Where did you play D&D growing up? Where's your whole background come from with like creating the whole Role Player and this whole? You're almost creating almost like a universe or something.
Right. So I'm creating the universe slowly but surely. But my gaming origins kind of started when I was a kid. I had a babysitter that used to bring over board games, and some of them were, I'm sure there were some like Sorries and Monopolies and stuff, but some of the games that she would bring over, like one was Survive, which is still in print, and I still have my own copy, and one is like Scotland Yard, which is still in print, and I have my own copy. Like these great old games, and my family always liked playing games. It wasn't like super dedicated, but like especially my grandmother was big into games, and we would play lots of stuff. And but then as I got older, I kind of grew out of those kind of games and started doing video games as well. And I was big into like early PC games like Ultima, which is one of my favorite games, which is very, very Tolkienist fantasy.
Yep.
And I used to love the Fallout games, like the first 2 back in the day, and like all those Black Isle games.
I put a lot of time into 4.
Yeah, yeah. I was like the newer ones I'm not as big a fan of, but the older ones with the turn-based combat I was a big fan of. And I had my sister's friends, they played D&D, and they'd have like the books laying out, and I thought they were cool, and I would get those books and I would read through them, and I was more like I loved the idea of playing Dungeons and Dragons more than I like actually playing.
Okay.
But I would I would create my own adventures and like create your own maps and stuff, and
we all did that.
Yeah,
I was there with you
doing
it.
You get the graph paper, and I would like fold it over and write like the name of it, and then it would go into a folder and all this stuff.
When I talked to several people, we were like, somebody mentioned my dad had a train table downstairs, and I'm like, my dad did too, and we built a world on that thing. They're like, yeah, we did too. I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one who did that. I feel better now.
Yeah. But I got pretty heavy into role playing when I was in college. I had a group of my friends, and we would play every Friday and Saturday night. We would always play Vampire on one night, and then the other night was kind of rotating. Whoever wanted to GM, so we would play Rifts or D&D or Shadowrun. I used to run Shadowrun and stuff like that. And then you grow up, and I moved away, and then eventually after living in California for 7 years after college, I came back to that city, and I started getting together with those guys and playing D&D again, and I then realized like I'm an adult now, and I have like responsibilities and like a 9-to-5 job, and like a wife and all these things. So I was driving 2 hours to get there and 2 hours to get back. And then we would also play
That's dedication.
We would also play for 10 to 12 hours. So I was like, when I talked before about like the amount of time versus the amount of fun that you're having, that definitely, the fun didn't equal the time. So then I started looking for another, I started looking into other things that could kind of fill that void. So I started finding out about Descent and like Arkham Horror and kind of real thematic games that are kind of a mash between RPGs and board games. So that was one of the 3 things that kind of got me back into board games.
Okay.
That and I had another experience where I had a friend of mine who came to visit me, and he's Puerto Rican, and he's just hanging out. And he's like, hey, I heard there's this game called Puerto Rico. I want to try it. So I was like, okay, whatever. He's like, I heard it's supposed to be really popular on this site called Board Game Geek. I was like, never heard of it, whatever. So we went to the game store and we bought it. And then we just sat down on a weekend and we just figured it out. And we played it like 4 or 5 times. And that kind of opened my eyes to what a Euro game was and what was capable there. And then I was also living in a city I hadn't lived in before. And I was looking for opportunities to find new people and like-minded people and activities that didn't involve going to the bar all the time and meeting people. So I think as you become an adult, I think it's harder to make friends, right? Like when you're in school and you're younger, then you're around people your same age that have similar experiences.
Besides the people you work with,
right? You
really don't see too many people, that.
Yeah, I think you really have to make an effort if you want to make friends. So I decided that this is the way I was going to do that. So. Kind of mixing those 3 things together got me full on like headfirst into board games, and after playing, I think this happens to a lot of people. You play board games for a while, and at some point you say, "This doesn't look that hard. I could probably do this." All you need is a piece of paper and a pencil, and you can start designing a game. So.
Well, when we were walking around the show floor, there's the one company put out like the white box, which actually has a bunch of components in there too, so you can actually get started. It's like a whole beginner kit for like a game designer. It's like so they're selling you like, okay, here's some components and everything to get you started.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
And you don't even need that stuff. All you need is a collection, and you can you could
probably just
you can totally like cannibalize your collection to build whatever you want. And there's other great resources to just get generic parts, but. If a game has a miniature in it or has this amazing piece, you can substitute a scrap of paper and get the same thing done. So as long as you're not looking at the art and you're not looking at what it looks like and you're more focused on the mechanics, then all you need is a piece of paper and a pencil, really.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into one more question here before we wrap up.
Uh-oh.
What's been hitting your table at home lately? What have you been playing lately? I mean, the name of my show is what I'm playing now. It's what I always talk about.
Right,
so this is a question I always have to throw out to somebody. Now, the funny thing is, we met Rodney Smith yesterday, and he asked me that question, and I was like, I almost froze up for a second, because I'm like, crap, what the hell have we been playing? I'm like, that's a hard question to actually answer, Rodney. Right. Oh, don't do that to me. Like, I'm supposed to ask that.
So one thing, it's interesting, the more, when you work on games, like, at some point, it starts to feel like I don't play games, I make games at some point, which is horrible. And I always really struggle to like carve out time to say, all right, I'm playing published stuff, and I'm not going to feel guilty that I'm not playing my prototype or working on some game. I'm just going to like try to have fun. But I recently played Trois or Troyes or however you want to pronounce it, which is a dice. It's not really dice manipulation, but it's a Euro dice game.
Yeah,
I mean, you can manipulate the dice, but it's such a minor thing, and that's a great game, and a little bit on the older side, but I think there's some people that maybe haven't tried it and they should.
Yeah, I don't know if we've played that one yet.
Yeah, it's great. It's the interesting mechanic about it, I think, is that so everybody, based on where their workers are, they get dice, they roll them up, and they put them in this pie in the middle of the table, and like one pie piece is yours. And you can use your dice to do certain things, but you can also use everybody else's die. You just have to pay them. So like. And everybody's buying each other's dice, but they don't have to ask for permission or anything. So like, I'm using this thing, and you can't assume that your dice are going to be there on the next turn because somebody else is probably going to buy them from you. And so that's a really nice medium heavyweight Euro that I like that I played recently. I've been playing Gloomhaven like crazy. That's like the game I played the most in the last couple of years. I've never been one of these guys that does a big campaign because I don't want to lock myself up for that long. But these guys want to play every other week, and I've been having a good time with that.
I was doing that for a little while, and I had to back out of our campaign because I was like, okay, it was literally like eating up my Sunday, and that's the day we usually do our streams of games, and I was like, okay, guys, I'm sorry I have to bow out of this. I'm having fun, but I go, this is consuming way too much time for me to just play this one game.
I mean, definitely for last year, that was by far the game I played the most of. and I just retired my first character, so I'm excited about that. And,
yeah, it is good. I mean, I had a good time playing it.
Right. It's a great time. It's got some
the
clever
story.
stuff.
The story is incredible.
Oh, nice.
I mean, the way it just evolves. I mean, it's almost like playing Skyrim or some type of that video game on a board. The way you're just unlocking everything, and it's crazy the way on the map. You can. Well, do we want to go here? To go here? And that's kind of how I play a lot of those RPGs. It's like there's a main quest, but as you're walking around, there's something shiny over here. Let me just wander over here. And I just wasted 4 hours of my life going through this little dungeon, and I'm like ignoring the main quest.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The big mega project that I'm working on is very narrative focused, and so I'm talking about like a lot of things you're talking about. So what you're saying is like getting excited about a game I'm working on, but that's a ways out. But
any names? Do we have a?
Yeah, that one's actually I just put a Board Game Geek entry up for.
Okay.
It's called Role Player Adventures.
Oh wow!
So the core idea is that you can take a character that you built in Role Player and you can import it into this game, or you can build a new character from scratch real quick. And you go through these kind of choose your own adventure style exploration games, adventures with that character.
Awesome.
And we're shooting for at least 10 different adventures, and each one takes about 2 hours to do. And then you level up your dude between adventures. It's about like maybe 60 to 70% narrative in terms of like reading paragraph stuff and making choices and passing the book kind of stuff, and then about 40% like mechanics in terms of like rolling dice and playing cards on each other and manipulating dice, like as any good role player game should do. So
I will definitely be looking forward to that. That sounds
I'm super
good.
excited about that one. I'm kind of doing the design, and then I have a couple writers that are working with me on it, and a good friend of mine that lives in Madison, who's an English teacher and a great writer, and his brother are both kind of working on the writing part of it, and then I'm kind of working on the design and the production. So it's been fun to work together with those guys, and it's just I'm just super excited about the game.
Okay, I'm excited about that one. But all right, I think we're going to let you start your day here.
Yeah, man.
And get on with things. Keith, definitely, it's very nice meeting you.
Excellent.
Thanks for interviewing with us this morning. We will be back later with some more interviews here at Origins 2018. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.